From a distance, you might think these ships were luxury liners, but the passengers are 100,000 living sheep. Australia, the world's biggest producers of wool and mutton, export 4 million sheep a year to the Arab countries. The trip takes an average of 32 days. The old ferries and freighters that ply this route have been remodeled to carry animals. 3 sheep share a 1 square meter stall. The stalls are built on top of each other, up to 8 stories high. Professor Dr. Reinhard Fries from the Institute for Meat Hygiene in Berlin says such conditions are not appropriate for the species.
When animals are transported over long distances, they need a surface to lie down on, a space to rest. They need enough feed and water, and they have to know how to get the water. Sometimes there are troughs the animals don't know how to use. They have to be taught.
Some of the sheep starve to death at sea because they don't recognize the concentrated feed pellets as food. The crowding, noise, heat, and high humidity trigger increased production of stress hormones in the animals, and that makes them susceptible to infection. The World Society for the Protection of Animals has done research on death rates on these ships.
The mortality rates vary enormously. For example, on the journeys from Australia to the Middle East, they might seem small, but the fact is that with 4 million animals transported every year, you end up with having 37,000 sheep dead.
Australia has exported frozen lamb for more than 100 years, but it still also exports living sheep. The exporters say their Muslim customers want it that way, as, according to the Quran, living animals have to be slaughtered in accordance with ritual. That's why the Australian Halal certificate was introduced 25 years ago.
We do it through Ozmeat, where we have very strong controls on our halal slaughtermen. It's government controlled also. And I'm very confident across this country that we do a very good halal slaughter. We work in with the Muslim community, and it's worked successfully over a number of years.
But farmers' economic interests also play a role. Meat processing is under a near monopoly in Australia, and it dictates prices to the farmers. By shipping living animals, they earn more and improve their negotiating position in their own countries.
Everyone has a share of the profit along the chain. The producers who sell, the companies that supply the feed for the animals on the feeding lots before embarkation, that supply the feed for the ship during the transport. There's a margin for those who buy the animals at the other end.
Long-distance transport is hard not only on the animals, but also on the quality of the meat. It is less immune to bacteria and goes bad faster, or it becomes DFD meat.
DFD stands for dark, firm and dry meat. That's what happens when animals are in transport for a long time. The animal's muscles are exhausted, their metabolism changes, and the pH value changes because the flesh isn't soured anymore.
Sheep aren't the only animals that are shipped long distances. Horse meat is relished in Italy. Italians get horse cutlets, fettini di cavallo, from the local horse butcher, and most of them think they're getting an Italian product. The labels don't say where the animals come from. But Italy covers its demand by importing live horses from Romania, Poland, and Spain. Most of the Spanish horses spend 40 hours on their way to Italy. And horses are especially unsuited for long transports. They have to balance out the vehicle's motion for hours without individual stalls.
It's easy to imagine what that's like. Stand up in a bus and don't hold on anywhere.
The European Union Parliament passed an ordinance in 2005 that regulates the live transport of horses. But the transport companies often don't comply with the laws. EU parliamentarian Neil Parish sees more state control as the solution.
For instance, the Slovenians have a mobile inspectors who follow transport through Slovenia, because lots of lorries that come from Romania, Bulgaria and further east come through Slovenia before they go into Italy. And this is very interesting because these mobile inspectors are able to stop the lorries and inspect. And my view is if they don't meet the requirements, then confiscate the lorry and take it away from the company. They would soon get the rules right if they lost their lorries.
But private initiatives can also be effective. In 2007, the World Society for the Protection of Animals recorded these disturbing pictures from Hawaii. What was being sold to tourists as Hawaiian fresh pork was actually living pigs imported from the U.S. mainland 3,200 kilometers away.
Because of the campaign there on the ground, the consumers and the buyers were aware that these animals were coming from mainland US and not Hawaii. And fortunately, this route was closed. The main importer in Hawaii is now importing fresh pork from mainland US. So this is a very good example of where consumer power and the importer made the difference.